I'd like to welcome you to the West Trade Review interviews. And today I am going to be interviewing Diane Gottlieb. My name is Kelly Harrison, and I am one of the editors at West Trade Review. Diane, it's lovely to have you with us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I'd like to start off a little bit by you said that this is part of a book that you're working on. Can you give us a little more info on that?
Sure. So I'm no longer working on that book, but it was going to be a book. I have published several essays about the people who I was going to highlight in the book. Let me see how to do this in the least confusing way possible. So I have a business that I started. I'm a tutor, and I was living on Long Island in New York at the time, and I was tutoring a young woman whose dad was a huge benefactor of a transitional home for men out of prison. And at the same time, my son and daughter-in-law were trying to help somebody get parole through I think it's called the New York Prison Parole Project. And I said, oh, well, I should hook you up with, this man, and maybe the person you're helping can get a space to live there, because you're much more likely to get parole if you have a place to go. When you're released. So that worked out, and the man that my son was helping, his name is Rashawn Muller. He was one of the men I was going to highlight in my book. And 2 years later, he contacted my son and said, the deacon was killed, and the deacon was the guy who ran the place. It was called Anthony House, and it was a local place, and I didn't want the deacon's legacy to be see what happens when you do good things, whatever that saying is. I forgot exactly what it is, but no good deed goes unpunished. I wanted people to see the good that he did do in this world. And I reached out to the someone who is assistant house manager to put me in touch with some people whose lives the deacon had changed. And Richie, who's the subject of the essay in West Trade, is was got to me through one of those people. So I hope that's not too confusing.
Perfect. So, so you're not doing the book, but you have published a few other pieces. So, uh, are your intentions now for each of those pieces to stand alone, or do you have sort of a revised vision of where they'll go?
Well, they're already out there. They're already standalones published. I don't really have a vision of putting them together as a writing project. I do speak. So it turned out that I connected with 5 men, 4 of whom had done a significant time for murder convictions. Okay, the only one of the 5 who wasn't serving time for a murder conviction was Richie. And he was the only one still in prison at the time. So um, I'm still in contact with all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is Richie still incarcerated?
He actually he actually made parole, and he's out now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And he's doing, fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything. He's managing. It's not easy, but he's managing.
Oh, good. Was he able to get the help and get into some I don't know, rehab's not the right word, but some support for it.
Very, very little. He was, he was had to go to a shelter, and then was moved several times. He was able to get a job. So now he rents a room and hopefully just continues to, find his way.
Fantastic. So you've kept in touch with all of the people that you've written about, including Richie. Um, are there other people sort of in the wings that you're thinking might make it into a piece?
No, I think I've kind of abandoned that project for a lot of reasons. It got very, very complicated. I ran into some snags with some family members of some family members. I'll just put it that way, and some snags with speaking with the police. Another big snag that I ran into was I wanted to cover the trial of the man who murdered the deacon, and there was no trial. He pleaded guilty, which is probably a good thing, but didn't bode well for a book. So I am so grateful for what this experience taught me for the years that I put into it, but I don't see any bigger project. I may do, if there's like a submission call that I feel like another essay might fit, I might do that. But I feel like I've really helped get these kinds of stories out in the way that I could. Um,
Yeah, because
and
what you're writing is kind of a form of literary journalism crossed with memoir.
yeah.
And I'm wondering if that is that something that you're writing in other spaces as well, not just in men who've been incarcerated, or are you writing other things outside of this?
Oh
Tell
yes,
us a
I
little bit
write all
about your
the
writing
time.
life, I guess is
I
the
write all the
question.
time. Yes, I write a lot of memoir pieces. This was going to be a narrative nonfiction slash memoir slash true crime, and it just didn't work. But yeah, I write a lot of memoir pieces. I just edited a collection called Awakening: Stories of Body and Consciousness that was published in October by ELJ Editions, which was such a joy and such a wonderful um, anthology. There are 49 essays in it, a lot of very seasoned writers, names you'd probably recognize, and two people who it was their very first publication. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's an important book because it kind of, it's body stories, and we all have stuff about our bodies, and it's bringing some things out into the open, and hopefully, inspiring others to feel um empowered around body issues. So that was great. I write fiction too, usually flash. I write a lot of flash. And I just recently started writing poetry more seriously. So that's been a lot of fun.
Well, I'll put in a plug here because West Trade Review currently has a contest 704 for flash fiction, and it comes from the area code because the West Trade Review was started in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we've got the area code there, and I think it's $7.04 for a submission. So we have that
Oh, that's
contest going
fun.
on right
Oh,
now.
that's great. I have to check that out. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all of our viewers can do so as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh, what can I just say one more thing? I'm
yes,
also the
please.
Prose and which is the fiction and nonfiction editor of Emerge Literary Journal, which is a flash journal. And they also publish poetry, but I'm not involved in the poetry end. And we just closed our window, but we're opening back up in July.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I don't know if we can put a link, but maybe you can share the link with me and I'll try to do some cross promo for you.
Wonderful.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of projects that you're working on.
Yeah.
And I know from the piece that you were doing a lot of social work. So maybe you can give us sort of the skinny of your journey as a writer. A lot of people are always
Any of my
interested in, like,
journey is
how did you get to where you are today?
well, it started in third grade. Where I
I think
used
most
to write
writers have
poems.
a
Yes,
grade
I
school
used to.
story.
So that's my poetry beginning. I would write poems. The deer is in the forest. Her mother died. She is all alone. The elephant is in the jungle. Her mother died. She is all alone. And no teacher ever asked me what was going on at home, but whatever. And so I used to write mostly when I was sad, or when I was just in a mess and I needed to sort things out. And it's very funny. I took writing seriously personally, but never thought of publishing or anything. And when President Trump, well, Trump became president, not President Trump. Oh, yeah, yeah. What did I just say? Anyway, when,
It's okay.
yeah, so many other people are calling that. I don't know. When he became president, I was devastated. And I called my friend Michael Frontier, who's a psychic. I know he calls himself something else, but yeah. And I called him. He's wonderful, by the way. Check him out, everybody. I called him and I said, "What am I going to do?" And he said, "Write." So I hung up the phone and I went to the computer and I looked up low residency MFA programs, and I just applied to Antioch because it had in Los Angeles, it had a social justice component. And that's when I started. I graduated at 58. So
Congratulations.
thank-
Wonderful.
so that's my writing journal. And then I just, write, write all the time.
So the program give you some support and scaffolding and how to navigate the whole publishing field? Because
Oh, not so
to go
much.
from one career to doing all of the publication
No,
that you've done.
no. No, unfortunately, I think they do more now, but when I went, not so much with the publishing. I mean, some of my mentors like gave me suggestions of where to send like pieces, but I still the publishing world is still kind of wacky. But yeah, but it changed my life. I feel like it gave me a new life. I'm forever great. I'll be forever grateful for that.
Maybe you can give us a little bit more in there. Dig a little deeper.
Oh, it's like
What kinds of things do you get?
so I feel like you know at my age I feel like I hear the clock ticking. So, which is a good thing because it keeps me like serious. It keeps me motivated, and I was just very open to learning, and I just took in everything I could, and there was a lot available. And I had wonderful mentors and made lovely friends who were half my age. And and it was just such a wonderful, wonderful experience. I can't say enough about it. And it really taught me. So I think I would have been a quote good literary citizen anyway because of my social work background and everything. But I Another thing that I do a lot of are author interviews and book reviews because I feel like, of course, I have to do those. Of course, I want to do those, and that's also a great joy of mine.
Maybe we could dig a little deeper there because I also do obviously interviews, but also book reviews, and I'm in the middle of writing a book review now. So, how do you approach a book when you know that you've been assigned to write uh, a piece about it compared to when you're picking up a book just for pleasure?
Um, Not all that differently. But having said that, when I know I'm going to write a review on a book, I read it much more closely and I take a lot of notes on the side. And then I start to see um, themes that interest the author, but that interests me. And what how like I do a lot of essay collections or short story collections, some memoir, and really just, how they speak to each other, how it weaves throughout the either the collection or the manuscript. And I try to think of connections in the greater world or connections that I might personally have with the work. So pretty much that.
Okay. Yeah, so you do a lot of the that note taking and thinking about things and fomenting the ideas. Now I want to kind of bring it down into the writing process, both for book reviews, but also for all of the like, do you is your process any different? Everybody always likes to talk process between the different kinds of writing that you do. Is a poem different from a fiction story, different from a memoir piece? Etc.
Yes. So,
That's the short answer. The long answer.
you know, with all that's going on in the world, I feel that some of my memoir pieces are like, who cares? Like really, I don't know, Diane, really like, um,
I think we're all kind of feeling that.
right, right. So that's kind of been more on hold. With memoir, I take very seriously who I include and how I include them. Because I have made mistakes in that area and um, felt pretty badly about that afterwards.
I mean, in terms of like hurting a relationship from something that you wrote.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and really unexpected. So I'm extra, extra, extra careful with that.
mhm. Do you have people read the pieces before you start sending them out for publication, or has this changed your
A
process?
lot of the people I write about in my memoirs are dead. So that actually gives me a leg up. But I try, I don't include a lot of people who are living. I know that sounds weird, but I write about my first husband a lot, who died almost 20 years ago in a car accident. And I write about my mom a lot, who would never have won a Mother of the Year contest, but I love her fiercely, and I love writing about her. I feel like I connect to her spirit when I do that. So that's less of an issue. Um, but poetry is kind of, I just have found that for me anyway, it's a way to get at some things that I really wouldn't even be able, like, be able to access in fiction or nonfiction, or that's been my experience. And it's so cool how that happens. I can't really explain it. Um,
Bit of the mystical side.
I think there's a mystical side to all of this. I really do. I mean, I think craft, of course, is really important. And I think, you know, reading other people and getting inspired. I mean, reading, getting inspiration from others. But I do think there's some sort of magic that happens that, especially when you're not as much in revision, I don't think, but just that, it always amazes me that when I sit down to, and I think I know what I'm going to write about, it's just something different. Not completely different most of the time, but something different. And there's a learning that happens for me and a growth that happens for me when I write whatever I write. That's part of the joy of it for me, whether it gets published or not, you know.
That's good. This has been wonderful. So I'd like to wrap it up with just one more question about the piece about Richie. Um, we talked a little bit about writing process. We didn't talk about the revision process. So we worked a little bit with you on some stuff. We do sometimes we do a light edit, sometimes we do a heavy edit, depending on things. I know what it's like on my end, but I would love to hear some of the comments from your end of what it's like to get the piece accepted and then to take it to the polished, getting it out the door.
Well, this particular piece went through like a zillion iterations because it's in some ways an interview piece. I wanted to use Richie's words because he's got great words, and he yeah, and I wanted it to be collaborative because it's actually a piece about visiting prison from both sides, my perspective and his. And there were a lot of surprises for me, and I thought I knew him pretty well about how he felt about having a visitor come to prison, and it really was eye-opening for me. And the revision process, I love, that's my favorite part. I love the revision process. I love when something doesn't feel right and struggling with it and trying to get it to a better place. And then I love having other people give me their thoughts. It's wonderful.
That's one of the things that I think all of us at West Trade really appreciate is the collaborative nature of those final steps. So any last words on this piece about Richie and anything else you would like to add?
I'm so grateful that it found such a wonderful home.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, really, I really am. And it was wonderful working with you on the revisions. I'm excited for him to see it. And
That's great.
for him to say, hey, I'm one of the ones in that, I don't know, 10% or 20%, or I'm one of the ones in the other group who doesn't find their way back. He did go back to prison 4 times. So maybe the fifth parole is the charm, I hope. Or the fourth parole. I don't know. I don't want whatever. This one,
This one.
charm. Yeah.
Well, wish him the best of luck from all of
I
us.
will. I will.
Excited to have the story out. We'll put some links down below to get to the story. And thank you so much for everything. I
Thank you
really
for
appreciate it.
everything. It's been wonderful, working with you, and thank you so much.